All right. Hi, everyone. This is Angela Thomas. You're a psychic and you do remote viewing. And before you answer that, I just want to say this was supposed to be live. We had technical difficulties yet again. Thank you, Facebook and Zoom. So we're recording this together and it's being uploaded to all sources. So it's not live. But please share a little bit about yourself, Angela.
Well, thank you, Megan. I am a psychic clairvoyant. I'm a research psychic for the study of precognition, and I teach online psychic development courses and a forensic remote viewing course live. So my classes are 2 hours apiece every week for however many weeks that course lasts. So I've got an upcoming 6 weeks course starting October 3rd. So it would be 2 hours every week for 6 weeks. And then I have a forensic remote viewing course that actually starts on September 28th. And so that's on a Saturday, and it's 2 hours every week for 12 weeks.
Wow. And can you explain like what the difference is between one like just regular remote viewing and then forensic remote viewing, and then how do psychic skills play into remote viewing?
Well, remote viewing is actually a clairvoyant skill. And of course, you can use your psychic abilities in with your clairvoyancy. But what is special about clairvoyancy is I always say it's ESP on steroids, but it allows you to look at the past, the present, and the future. And so remote viewing is a non-local perception. So in other words, you can sit from your chair and see any person, any object, any place, anywhere in the world, an event, for example. And this particular remote viewing was used by our U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, actually all of the intelligence communities within our government during the Cold War. And so there's a very famous program now. Of course, it was ended in 1985 called Stargate Project. And so, our people, our psychic spies, were working against their psychic spies. But where it came in handy for the US government was to be able to see the event or a particular building where something was being manufactured, or a downed plane, for example, that would have a lot of secrets on it or high technology that certainly we would not want our enemies to know.
Right.
So when you are doing normal remote viewing, again, whether it's an event, an object, a place, a person, you can gather that information. What differs between psychic forensic remote viewing is once you start getting into missing persons and really tracking that missing person or the abductor, if there's an abductor or a secondary person that they're with, that's when it becomes forensic. And so I used to have a 5-week course on forensic remote viewing. I expanded it to 6 weeks, but now I have incorporated human trafficking in it, which human trafficking is such a huge problem.
Yeah.
It went from 6 weeks to 12 weeks.
Wow.
And it's absolutely needed. So that's the difference between the normal remote viewing and the forensic remote viewing. So in forensic remote viewing, for example, if little Susie goes missing, and let's say, Megan, they contact you and say, look, can you help us find Susie? She's been missing for, I don't know, 2 days. then you have to have the ability, the retrocognition, the ability to see in the past where little Susie was 2 days ago, bring it to today in the present, and look into the near future. So again, past, present, future, to see where little Susie is at this time, or where are they going, or what direction, how many miles, and so on and so on.
Is it something that anyone can do? Okay.
It is absolutely something that anyone can do. It is a matter of training your mind to work differently.
Hmm.
So even in your psychic mode, I do a lot of psychic work and I do a lot of clairvoyant work, and sometimes I combine it.
Hmm.
But it's still very different. Actually, I love it because it enhances my sessions, you see, you know. So my sessions, whether that's giving someone a psychic reading or actually, let's say, taking on a criminal case.
Hmm.
So remote viewing absolutely enhances everything that a psychic clairvoyant does. But yes, very teachable. Now, let me say this. It's not just let me read the instructions. You really have to practice.
Hmm.
And so if you practice with anything, right? If I wanted to build muscle, I would have to practice going to a gym or lifting weights or whatever the exercises I would need to do in order to build that muscle. The same goes with your mind. So whether you're using it psychically, like here, I have the 6-week psychic development course, you're practicing all the way through it. And then in your off time, you want to practice what you just learned. So when you practice remote viewing, you start seeing a noticeable difference. And the way that you can tell is that you're getting a lot of information.
Hmm.
Now, I use 3 different types of matrices, uh, uh, which is a very formatted, let's call it questionnaire, similar to what, let's say, a detective would use,
Hmm.
except very lengthy, and allows you to follow a matrix so that you stay with what's important. So, what direction? How many miles? Is little Susie alone or is she with John Doe? Right. And what street? What city? Or is she out in the middle of the field somewhere? Right. So, it allows you, that matrix allows you to stay formatted, to focus on what you need to do. And then after the session is done, like when I take on a case, I generally go through the whole process at least a minimum of 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And so, you're drawing, you're literally drawing what you're getting. So I turn into detectives or the police agency liaison. Here's my written report, and here are the drawings.
Oh,
So
wow.
very specific. So it's not like, oh, I see a white truck on a dirt road, and there's a field and trees. And it forces you to be specific. And if you don't get any information, so be it. You move on to the next thing. But it doesn't really allow for some sort of woo-woo or abstract information. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah, so that's fascinating because, like the one time I took a class and I I think it was like a weekend long thing, and one of the exercises that we did was general remote viewing. Like we were given coordinates and then
Mhm.
asked to go into that, and I remember it kind of being hard sometimes to like because part of my brain like wanted to do it right. So
Right.
like how do you let go of of that part of you that, like, especially in a like a human trafficking situation or a child being taken, like, how do you get that part of your brain out of the way so that you can like truly be focused on the information?
Well, that's a very good question. The one thing about doing this clairvoyant work, remote viewing, and even people that do remote viewing may not even claim clairvoyancy, or they may not even know. But clairvoyancy allows you to toggle between the information, let's say your clairvoyant information that you're getting, or perceptions, and logic.
Mm.
So you are actually toggling back and forth between the two, but you absolutely have to stay focused. So you can't have, let's say, little children running on in the background or a lot of noise. You have to be in a place that you can maintain the environment, right? Your focus, you're getting your information, doing your logic, because in remote viewing, as you just expressed, you've experienced that before. When you're getting that information after you get that coordinate, you immediately begin to draw. And you have to trust that your subconscious mind is placing that information into your conscious awareness. So we're not psychically seeking, like, let me just keep my hand on the paper and I'll draw whenever I get some information. No, 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 no. You draw on that paper as soon as you repeat that coordinate number.
Oh,
And you have to allow, notice that big word, allow, the subconscious mind or your hand to move, even if you do not at that moment know what the heck you're doing. You may have scribbles on the paper, but it's not your job at that time to go, oh, that's just a bunch of goopily gop, on a piece of paper. You have to trust that your hand then is going to respond, because it's being stimulated to move that way.
right.
You have to trust that it's responding and that it will begin to take shape. So whether you're using one piece of paper or 10 pieces of paper, you have to just trust the process. In the interim, you are, let's just say you draw I don't know, a rectangle. Now you logically don't know what that rectangle is just yet. You may get a perception like this is I don't know, a trailer or a mobile home. So what do? You just write 2 or 3 words down very quickly. Uh, you know, rectangle, hard, mobile home. And then you continue to draw on your paper. And eventually the information and the perceptions will start taking shape. So you don't want to lot, and that's the biggest problem I feel, or not the problem, but the challenge is to not allow your logical mind to take over.
But yet it's a
Okay.
very logical thing that you're doing.
Well, you're toggling, right? So you have to get used to, I'm in receiving mode
Mm.
and I'm allowing the perceptions that I'm getting, or if you're getting visions or whatever the case may be, I'm allowing it. I'm drawing it. I'm writing a few words down, and then you're toggling. So when you're writing the words down, you're back into logic. When you're drawing, you're back into your clairvoyant receiving mode. And the reason that you only write 2 or 3 words down at a time, because you're not writing in sentences at that point, is because you don't want to be taken away from the receiving mode. You want to go, okay, logically, okay, it's rectangle. I feel it's hard. and boom, it's a mobile home. So you can get perceptions about I'm in the city, uh, I'm at a schoolyard, uh, or whatever. I'm on the water. I get a perception that I am in this location throughout the world. I mean, it's so intense, it's hard to describe everything about it, but I can say to you, it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. So whether you're using it, let's say if you're not using it for, let's say, criminal cases or missing persons, then it's a wonderful tool to have in your toolbox because it can become very helpful, especially if you're ever called upon to use it for, like, I've got a $1 million pieces of equipment that's gone missing in South America, right? So can Megan, I'll give you a lot of money if you can find my equipment. Or you can use it again forensically to track missing persons or to do criminal cases or cold cases.
Very, very interesting. So, two questions. One, do you have to know how to draw? Um,
No, excuse me. No.
no, okay. And then two, this was, one of the questions from one of the people in my group, Karina. Um, like, sometimes information that we're getting can be symbolic. So, like, how
Mhm.
do you decode what you're receiving or what you're drawing? Like, even like after you've done the drawing and then you're looking at it, like, how do you decode the symbolism?
Well, are we talking about remote viewing or the psychics end of it? Because it's two different things.
Either, both. Like, let's.
Okay, so in remote viewing, after you go through, I personally do 3 scans. So 3 scans means that Angela's going to go through all of those questions on the matrix. I'm going to take all of my drawings, and that's session 1 or scan 1. And then I do a second one and a third one. And then I've already, as a clairvoyant, I already know when I'm in the middle of that session. Like, for example, I already know if I'm in a city. I already have the perceptions of, let's say, I'm in the industrial side of a city. I already know the distance. I already know the direction. I already know something about it. So I will continue to focus and allow that information to come in and write my words down as I go. When you've finished the entire scan or scans, then you deduce. Okay, I'm in the city, I'm in the industrial side, little Susie is in this area. And so you're able then to deduce where you are and where little Susie is located, or at least the area for police or detectives on the ground can go to it. Psychically, it's some psychics, they get a lot of symbolisms if they're clairvoyant, which I say everybody's psychic and everybody's clairvoyant. So if they're hearing something or getting the perception of, let's say, I feel I'm hearing seagulls, for example. But when you start getting a bunch of symbols, or you're getting a mixture of maybe visions that come very quickly and go very quickly, or information that's coming so rapidly, the best thing to do is focus. So I always say 1,000 times or more per year, probably. Where you focus, so goes the energy.
Hmm.
So if you're unable to focus, you're not going to do well in any sort of psychic work or clairvoyant work. That's important. Now if you're just an interpreter of information, that's not the same thing. So yes, focus is very important. And also before you ever start, and I don't have to tell you, you have to ground your energies, protect your aura,
Mhm.
and and do a shift. So I have exercises, especially one, which I won't share, that allows you to shift your state of consciousness from where we are right now. So right now we're in beta,
Mhm.
and the next level down is alpha. And we don't want to completely be smack dab in the middle of alpha, because alpha is that half awake, half asleep stage. So I have an exercise in which one can shift into alpha, but right inside of it, to
Mhm.
where they're in that receiving mode and they're able to do their work. So to answer your question, going back to how do you know, or how do you tell, or again, you have to focus. So if you lose your focus, all you have to do is refocus.
Mhm.
And there are certain things that you can do, to get yourself in that mode again. You're not running a race, right? So if it takes you 2 or 3 minutes to refocus, so be it. Now, if you're in a paid, let's say, psychic reading, you're not going to have the ability to have your client wait for you to take that 2 or 3 minutes. You
Mhm.
can say to your client, however, you know what, Jane Doe, give me a moment. I need to focus on this, or let me look into it a little further. Let me just focus.
Yeah.
And
And
your client's going to say, that's great.
yeah.
That's great.
Well, and I know there have been times where like the information that I've received, it's like, I don't know what this means. So it's like, I just share sometimes like this is what I'm seeing. I don't know what it means.
Oh,
And
I see.
and sometimes I find like
Right, right.
somebody's like, oh, that means this.
Oh, okay. So here's the thing about that. You're not going to know every little bit of information about every little thing and what each and everything means, because logically, and again, we want to stay away from logic.
Mm,
At least that's the way I work. Um, I stay away from logic. I'm not trying to piece together the puzzle. I'm not putting the puzzle together. I'm just the messenger, and I'm delivering the information to my client. So I may say something that, to me, the logical Angela would go, you know what, that doesn't even make sense. But to Jane Doe or to John Doe, it makes a lot of sense.
yep.
So I always say at the very first class that I teach, you must be willing to be wrong.
Mm,
That keeps you the heck out of trying to logically figure out Jane or John Doe's issues or challenges. You must be willing to be wrong. And that also keeps you, or prevents you, not to invest in the outcome.
yeah. And I kind of like that even for the remote viewing of like it's okay to be wrong, like especially while you're learning something, like and letting go of the mind wanting to be like right. Or
Exactly,
wanting-
exactly. Because, I've taught a lot of people, and I've been teaching since 2004, psychic
wow.
development.
Wow.
So 20 years.
And you have books, correct?
I do, but they're not published yet. So
Okay.
we won't even talk about those at the moment. But I lost my point on that. Da, 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 da.
The logic mind, letting go of the logic, and you've been
Oh, okay. So not investing in the outcome.
yeah.
So if we invest in the outcome, we're going to be worried the entire time when we're doing a reading, let's say for Jane Doe, like, oh my gosh, I hope she thinks I'm good. Or, oh my gosh, I hope what I just said was right. Um, I wonder what she's thinking right now. And I say, forget it. Do not invest in Jane Doe's emotions or the outcome. Just deliver the information. If she needs somebody to help her make a decision about something, let that be a friend or a relative or a professional. You're just the messenger giving Jane Doe the information, and Jane Doe as an adult can make her own decision. But what I've witnessed throughout the years, like sometimes they don't even know it, but I will go on certain areas of the web and I sign in. And of course, I don't sign in as a psychic. I just want to hear what readings people are doing, and they're not reading. They're giving their opinions, or they're, saying some sort of saying that doesn't really give Jane or John Doe any answers. And so I stay away from that. I really absolutely do.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point, because I think a lot of people, as somebody like wanting some assistance, they go with like, I want you to answer, I want you to tell me what to do, versus, you know, what do I need to know about this specific thing so I can make
Right,
a decision?
right. So the way I like to do that, I'm not going to tell Jane Doe what to do. Like, listen, Jane Doe, this is what you need to do. That's not my role. But I will say, Jane, if you decide, I'll say, getting back with Billy, Billy the abuser. If you decide to get back with Billy the abuser, then this is what you can expect of the relationship between now. I like to work in 18 months, between now and 18 months, or between now and the next 2 weeks, or whatever time frame I'm giving. If you decide not to get back with Billy the abuser, then, Jane, you can expect these influences coming in, and it's going to be up to you whether you decide if you want to do X or you want to do, Z. But I have no role in her decision. I'm not going to take responsibility, because have you ever heard anyone complain, that psychic told me that if I did this, then Billy and I are going to get back together and we're going to get married and have 3 children and live happily ever after? It's just not going to happen.
No. And I think like that's the big thing with like the future psychic kind of stuff, is that it's a possibility, even or it even could be like a probability if you continue down this path. But there's, one day instead of turning right, you turn left, and that like
Exactly.
completely
2
shifts.
different realities, right?
Yeah.
So what was the name of that documentary about the realities?
Oh, I don't know.
I can't remember it, but it's all about quantum physics. So absolutely, if you're at that red light and you turn right instead of left on your normal path, you get a different reality. You get a lot of different influences and things coming in. So, but you have to be confident to deliver the message. These are the messages, and let John and Jane Doe deal with it. That, and not, again, going back to investing in the outcome, I've been reading for clients for, well, nearly 30 years, to be quite honest with you. But I've got some that's been with me for 24, 25 years, a long time. And so, to read and know somebody for that length of time, naturally you have a personal connection. But still, with those particular clients, it's, I don't ever invest in the outcome. I want them to be able to have the very best, But, and by the way, when I read, even for people I've been reading for years, after 15, 30 minutes, whatever I've said to them leaves my mind.
Mm.
So even I've got relatives. In fact, I read for a particular relative and I said, which I've known all my life. And it was like I couldn't logically grasp what he did for a living.
Hmm.
And so I ended up saying, whatever you do for a living. So anyway, but that's enough of that. Generally, I can just say that, as a psychic, I teach psychics how to expand their abilities. I teach a lot of psychics and psychic mediums, ones that have really great experience, but I teach them how to expand their mind, expand their abilities, and add it to their already existing toolbox. And I teach beginners as well. So in my upcoming Psychic Development 1 masterclass, it's for both the beginner and the experienced practitioner. Why? Because I have techniques and exercises that I've developed. They're short and simple. And the thing is, you're not going to find them in a book.
Hmm.
Now, when my own books come out, then you'll find it in the book. So this is not taking the rehashed or what I call regurgitated psychic exercises that you might find a handful in somebody's book. And it's like, that's not going to help that person. It's just not.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right.
Well, this was great. I know you you're traveling and trying to get
Yes.
a bunch of things done. I so appreciate this conversation. I hope, like, in the future we could have another conversation and actually
Sure.
go live, work out whatever bugs are happening with Facebook and Zoom. But because I think like there's just so much stuff, and it's nice to talk to somebody who is grounded but has like a lot of experience and a lot of the skills and um, because it's very easy to get caught in the woo woo ness of things and
Right. And I'm
not
not a
really.
woo-woo person at all. I feel that, the psychics and clairvoyants out there can be more productive if they just stick to being direct. Now, I'm not talking about telling Jane Doe some horrible negative thing, because we want to stay away from creating fear and anxiety in our clients, but not be woo woo or abstract. And the moment I hear somebody do woo woo, I go, that's not a psychic. That's somebody faking to be a psychic. They might have flipped through a book, they might have watched some videos on YouTube, and now they've labeled themselves as a psychic. So if you're in woo woo and abstract, forget about it. You're not really getting what you're paying for if you're paying somebody for a reading.
Yeah. Well, I think like there's like the Akashic records and there's other things that may
Mhm.
be a little bit more woo. And sometimes they like if you're trying to describe who you are, like especially at a place where it's like you have to select between this, and this, and it's like, well, I kind of do this and I kind of do that, but I'm not really this and I'm not really that. And like you're having to sometimes pick something or you're trying to use words that people understand. But it is,
Right.
you know, like I think the world needs to, be better about providing more options of about what a person does. Like if you can't necessarily like, especially if you're signing up for something where like you have to kind of select, do you do this or that? Because like even sometimes on Facebook, it's like you have the option of a coach, but it's like I'm not really a coach and I'm not really a wellness person, but like I do, it's like it's how do you really describe yourself in some of those places? But
Well, you really want to be able to define what you do. Now, I can say, because I'm an old lady, and I already know that some 18-year-old or 21-year-old that's labeling themselves, I'm a psychic, I'm a clairvoyant, I'm a shaman, I'm a visionary, I'm an empath, I'm a blah blah, and by the way, I'm a coach. And it's like, no, you're not.
Mhm.
You have the abilities. My goodness. Everyone is psychic.
Mhm.
I've said this a zillion times. Some are scribblers, some are Picassos. And the difference between the two is the actual practice.
Mhm.
You're not born and suddenly you know everything, and you're mature, and you're getting wisdom from, let's say, spirit guides, and you're not a little young person toddling around with all of this knowledge. It's just not the way it works. So, but yes, it is very hard to define.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't go into all of my roles. I mean, I do telepathy. I do precognition. Again, I'm a research psychic for the study of precognition, the ability to see into the future. I am documented. I've been doing it for a long time. I I do retrocognition. I work colors and sounds and third eye and the whole shebang. But do you really think that Jane and John Doe care, honestly,
Mhm.
that a psychic such as yourself are like, okay, here's the 10 things or the 8 things or the 3 things that I do? They're like, no, I mean, you said you're a psychic, so Megan, I'm going to book with you. Right? But they don't want your CV or your resume. They
Yeah.
just want they want the answers or the messages.
Well, in
So,
the future, I'd be interested in learning a little bit more about like the colors and stuff, because like, what the colors mean or
well, and I work with color and I work with sound. I'm telling you, sound is where it's at.
really.
Absolutely.
All right,
Uh,
you're definitely coming back on because I don't want to take too much of your
yeah,
time.
yeah, but I mean, look at the sound. Um, there's sound healing, there's
Yep.
sound therapy, but using sound in your psychic clairvoyant work is the absolute way to go.
Okay.
It increases your abilities. You get more information right then and there. So,
Well, good to know. You
right.
definitely come back either later
Thank
this
you.
year or beginning of next year because there's so much more to talk about.
Great, Megan. Have a great one.
You
Thank you
too.
very
Thank you
much.
so much.
All right. Bye
Bye.
bye.